Alright, so class, the goal for you is you be able to calculate the perimeter and area of two-dimensional shapes. Alright, now perimeter, I know you're already pretty familiar with. Alright, so I just want you to write this down in red. The perimeter of shapes is found by adding all sides together. Alright, but for circles, to find the perimeter, you gotta use a formula. Alright, any other shape that doesn't have rounded edges, right, like a circle, we're talking parallelograms, rhombi, triangles, squares, rectangles, trapezoids, etc. Alright, you can find the perimeter of the object just by adding up all those straight edges on the outside. Alright, but for circles you gotta use this formula. Alright, so the circumference is equal to pi times d, which is the diameter of the circle. Or you could use this method, 2 times pi times r, which is the radius. Alright, so something I want you to write down that isn't on here, alright, is that circumference, right, put a star next to this. Circumference of a circle, alright, is also the perimeter of a circle. Write that down. The circumference of a circle is also the perimeter of a circle. Okay? Also, something else I want you to write down. Put a star next to this. Pi. Alright, that symbol there, pi. Pi is equal to 3.14. So write that down also. Pi equals 3.14. Alright. Now, the radius of the circle is just the distance from the center of that circle to the outer edge of a circle. Alright, that's the radius. D, the diameter, that's just the distance from one end of the circle, one edge, through the center to the other edge. Alright, it's a straight line. That's the diameter. Now, the radius is half of that. Alright, which is why for our formula to find the circumference, you can either multiply pi times the diameter or pi times 2 and r, since there are 2 radii in one diameter. Alright, so now you should have 2 stars with the 2 things I wanted you to write down that I said that weren't written on the boards. Alright, next. Okay. Squares and rectangles. Find the area, you multiply the length times the width. Alright, I got two images drawn here. One's a square, length and width. The other one is a rectangle, length and width. And something you can write down. I put a star next to this. It does not matter in a square or rectangle what you label the length and what you label the width. Alright, so go back and write this down. In a square or rectangle, it doesn't matter what you label the length or what you label the width. Alright, because if you label this the width or that the length, you're still just multiplying them together. Same thing with square. You're still, if this is the length and that's the width, you're still just multiplying those 2 numbers together, which is going to give you the same answer no matter what. Alright? Triangles. To find the area of a triangle, you have to multiply 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle. Alright, now in this case, this is the height of the triangle, here's the base of the triangle. But that's not always going to be that easy, or it's not always going to be easy to identify the height of a triangle. For instance, a triangle like this. We know the base is right here. Alright, but the height, there's not a straight line that goes up and down. So the height of this triangle is determined by measuring from the very bottom all the way to the top. Alright, and that's the last thing I want you to write down. Alright, so put a star next to this. The height of a shape is found by measuring from the bottom side or bottom point of a shape in a straight line, right, vertically to the top side, top edge, or top point of that shape. Alright, so again, put a star next to this, write this down. The height of a shape is found by measuring, using a straight line, from the bottom of a shape vertically all the way to the top of that shape. Alright, that's how you find the height. Sometimes the height's easy to find. There's already a straight line going from the very bottom to the very top. Alright, but in this case, that dashed line or dotted line would be the height of that triangle. Alright, a parallelogram. To find the area of a parallelogram, all you have to do is multiply the base and the height. And again, here's our base, the bottom of the shape, the base. Here's the height, straight up and down. Alright, and what makes a parallelogram a parallelogram is that both opposite sides, they're parallel to each other. These sides are parallel, which means if they went on forever and ever and ever, they would never meet. Ever. They would never cross. Same thing with these. These sides, if they continued on forever and ever and ever, would never meet. Alright, so they're considered parallel, which is why this is a parallelogram. And squares and rectangles, those could also be considered parallelograms. Alright? And the last slide. Alright, we got a rhombus, which the plural class for rhombus, alright, is just rhombi, rhombuses. Alright. Now the area of a rhombus, that's found by multiplying the base times the height. Or, if you're not given the base and the height, you can multiply 1/2 times diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. Alright, so rhombus, which is really just a parallelogram, but every side is exactly the same. Alright, so it's kind of like a square, but without those 90-degree angles. Alright, so base times height, or you can multiply 1/2 times diagonal 1 and diagonal 2. Well, in this case, one diagonal is from one corner to the opposite corner, and that means the other diagonal would be from one corner to the opposite corner. So we got diagonal 1, diagonal 2. If you multiply those two together times 1/2, you'll get the area of that rhombus. Alright, but you can use either one of those formulas, it's up to you. Alright, trapezoid is probably the longest formula you'll have to know. Trapezoid, well, just for dealing with the area of shapes. Okay, you multiply 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2, and since that's in parentheses, right, you do that first, you add those up, and then you multiply that by the height of the trapezoid. So if you see a trapezoid like this, which a trapezoid is really just a four-sided figure, alright, that has one set of parallel lines. In this case, these two lines right here are parallel, right, they're never going to meet. Alright, we've got base 1, base 2, and we got the height of the parallelogram, or sorry, of the trapezoid. And then down here I've got base 1 and base 2, but in this case the height, since we don't have a line going straight up and down for one of our sides, we have to use a dashed line. This represents the height. Alright, and then we plug whatever that value is into the formula for h. And last but not least, circles. To find the area, we multiply pi times the radius squared. Alright, radius, class, the radius, that's just this right here. Alright, the distance from the center of a circle to an outside edge. And it doesn't matter if this dashed line is right here, right there, right there, right there. The radius is always going to be the same in a perfect circle. Alright, and remember, pi is 3.14, and when you square a number, that just means you're multiplying it by itself. So let's say the radius of that circle was 5 centimeters. Well, you would plug in 5 for r, and then you would have to square it, which means you'd have to do 5 times 5, which is 25. And then multiply that value times pi to get the area of that circle. Alright, but that's it. Just make sure you've got all these formulas labeled with the shape they belong to, and make sure you've got some examples so that you can, determine what a base is, what a radius is, what a diagonal is, what a height is. Alright, so make sure you've got everything I've got on these boards, plus what you should have starred, and see you guys soon. Alright, later.